Ahoy, mateys, and welcome to Jester Bros Cartoon Travelers, where my brother and I explore the vast and beautiful worlds of animation for the perfect place to call home. We're doing something a little bit different today, and we are getting super meta.
Oh, yeah.
And most of the time, this podcast is all about us exploring different cartoon worlds, but what's interesting about that, we have this ship that we're on, the Animachine, that all of you are boarding and traveling with us.
Yes.
Once in a while, a new planet pops up. A new constellation of multiple planets could even pop up. And that's because animation is a growing medium, and new worlds are being brought in to this universe every day. And what's happening right now is the Annecy, gonna make sure that I don't get this wrong, the Annecy International Animation Film Festival.
Oh, wow. When you said Annecy, I thought that was like another variation of our animated I thought we were stealing that. Nice. Annecy's real. Sorry, please continue.
Yeah, so it's a real film festival, and I believe it happens every year where I guess there's some kind of a competition element, but it's really just a celebration of animation, and there's a lot of features being shown, and there's also a lot of news being announced about brand new projects that are in the works. So we thought that today might be a good time to stop down and sort of talk about the state of animation where it is right now. So yes, potentially some new planets that are emerging into the cartoon universe, but also how we feel about that.
Yes.
And what we think about where animation is headed, especially on television,
Yes.
but probably some discussion about movies as well.
So in a way, we are taking our toon ship, back to this reality and analyzing the other animated properties and worlds that we've been looking out, like meta gods.
Yeah, just call us a couple of gods.
Exactly.
Now, I also want to get people's feedback. We have potentially upgraded the tech, so tell us what you think about this new layout. We hope that we sound and look better, and we are just going to try to keep improving as time goes on.
Yes, indeed.
All
right. You want to start? Get us launched. Where are we even going?
Sure. So I think that I kind of want to start out with a series of Warner Brothers announcements.
Okay.
Where I think it's a good spot to start the conversation.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of talk right now about intellectual property that already exists.
Yeah.
And I guess if you're not familiar with that, it really is just pre-existing content that's already out there, getting new content.
Yeah.
Is sort of what we're talking about today.
And just so everybody knows, we're going to be talking about more than that. This is going to be an opinion episode. So get ready.
Sure.
Buckle your bootstraps or I don't even know what I'm talking about. Opinions are coming. So let us know what you think in the comments if you're on YouTube. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe if you like this kind of stuff, because we're going to be bringing these podcasts regularly.
Right. And we're starting here because it is a big trend right now to reboot things, to give things sequels, to kind of take the nostalgia that people already have for something and build on that and give them a bigger universe. And I think this is controversial because networks and companies are starting to realize that a lot of the time this is a more lucrative model. There is a reason that people are playing off the likes and interests that people already have to make their new content. And
let's say it this way. It's a safe way to make money versus it's a lot more risky to go with a new property because they don't know if it'll, prove itself.
Yes.
However, what we're also seeing in the animation sphere is that those risks pay out more reward. Because a lot of the unique and fresher ideas that have come out in animation are showing as far more interesting and higher quality to larger audiences. But we'll get into that.
Definitely. So it's a risk reward thing. I know that Disney has kind of publicly said, at least for Pixar, they're like, hey, what we're kind of thinking is every year we want to release one fresh idea that hasn't been done, and then another idea that's a sequel. And I think that's frustrating to people because they want more ideas, but that's already more movies than Pixar has kind of been giving. So the theory behind this, and I actually want to start here, if you think that this is a good theory, we create a dichotomy where one brand new thing and one thing that builds off something successful. And that way, if this new thing flops, bad, but if it's good, then we end up building on it later.
So I was thinking about this debate before we started, and the way that I feel about it is that there's a difference between continuing a story that's interesting that people are invested in and reviving something that used to do well. And I don't think, in my opinion, there is a lot of merit in revivals in general, because you told your story and you're just trying to take the same characters to tell a new story, which might not actually fit the characters that you're doing it with. An example of one that I expect to be good that's not doing that is in Pixar is Inside Out 2, because that is a story about the girl that we saw in the first one growing up more. So it's not like you're taking the same characters and just giving them a new plot line. Like, oh, we're the Incredibles, but now we're family oriented. You know what I mean? Not that The Incredibles 2 was like a terrible sequel or anything like that, but I think that it didn't work the same way that the first one did. It's not as memorable. And a lot of the things that I'm excited about are like Vox Machina is a show, an Amazon Prime cartoon that it is a sequel technically, but it's because the story's not finished yet. Versus like Fiona and Cake is a revival where Adventure Time is done, but we're going to try to keep getting more out of it. And I'm less of a fan of that than like just continuing a story.
Sure, and not to be ticky-tack, but just to also clarify, I don't really think The Legend of Vox Machina on its own as a sequel so much as it is a creation in animated form of something that Critical Role did as a D&D campaign.
No. I mean, so, like how we're getting a season 2.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, so you just mean like series continuity.
Yeah, exactly. Like Inside Out 2 is continuous with the first one, just like how Vox Machina Season 2 is continuous. It's not like bad to keep running with the same story. I think that it's when your story is over, but you're trying to get more out of it. It reads often as you just want to make money off something that people are already fond of.
Great. So that helps me establish this. Generally speaking, you think sequels can make sense if they're expanding the universe, but reboots, generally not your favorite. I always speak to the DuckTales reboot as the one that did it really well.
Yeah,
because
that is the one. You get that one, but that cannot be your golden argument. That is one example.
But we also talk about how part of the reason that DuckTales succeeded so well is that the original series was, yes, a beloved 80s cartoon, but not necessarily, like, good. There were not a lot of complex characters or stories.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
I'm not saying it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
But it was not like a long-running plot with continuity that made you invested in the future of the characters.
Yeah.
So I feel like a successful reboot does kind of take something that was beloved, yes, but maybe not the highest quality ever, and then you give it true quality, you give it continuity.
Yeah, I think that is the way to do it. Like, hear me out. I think Disney should remake The Black Cauldron, animated. I think that would be freaking awesome. There's no way that's ever going to happen, but I feel like that would be a really cool move for a reboot. It's not that it was, like, terrible to begin with, but, like, it had its issues, but it was a really cool, darker concept, and I would love to see them try to bring it back to life, you know?
Yeah, I totally get that. So we start here because Warner Brothers has released a series of concepts that we can expect coming soon.
Yeah.
One of those, I'll say two of those, are taking concepts that we love as adults and are not turning it into, but they're creating a preschool adaptation, I think, to get younger kids interested in these characters. And if I may say, I think that part of that is potentially a move to then take those same preschoolers, and as they get older, maybe they consider rebooting these same concepts again so that the kids get older and now they can just keep cycling them through. I'm not saying that it's ethical, but I do think
that's how Pokemon does it.
It's how Total Drama did it. Fans were so upset when they decided to reboot the series with all of these characters as babies, but then those babies got a little bit older, and here we go. We have new Total Drama seasons with them as teenagers again. So it is something that at least has been done. The two shows that I'm talking about are one that's very popular, Adventure Time.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Adventure Time. And then we also have Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Yes.
And I'm even going to share my screen here to show what these concepts look like, because we do have some initial concept art.
Yes.
So if you're listening, I can try my best to explain what we're seeing here. First of all, can you still see and hear me okay, by the way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's all perfect.
Great. So this is called Heyo Bimo, very popular character from Adventure Time. You would know more about Bimo than me, so why don't you explain what's going on here?
I mean, it's essentially just a pre-K geared cartoon, I guess, unless it's going to be in this animation style, in which case I don't know if that's exactly a cartoon if they're doing claymation. If they did claymation, that would actually be sick.
I think maybe this is actual concept. I think it's going to look similar to this.
And honestly, I didn't even read too far into it. It's not up my alley. I'm not a preschooler. I want to see more. I don't look. Nobody likes my opinion on Adventure Time. I don't want to see more Adventure Time. I liked Adventure Time, and I want to see. That's an example of a story that I thought was really expansive, and it doesn't need to keep going on. Personally, even when what's it called, Distant Lands, the Distant Lands like kind of mini episodes came out. I was really skeptical. I think those are some of my favorite examples of animation of all time, so I can be proven wrong. But this to me looks like let's take an IP we know and love because we know it'll work. Now, Bemo's a great character. Like, if you're going to do this with somebody, Bemo's one of the best characters you could do this with. And I do hope that it is a great kids show that teaches, like, you know, interesting and complex morals to kids about existence or whatever. You know, I hope it goes like a Bluey route and, you know, challenges how parents and kids watch things together instead of like, you know, I don't know, like a Blue's Clues route where it's just a point and click adventure essentially.
Hey now, Blue's Clues is our childhood, but
I'd never watch it again though.
Right. I love that point though.
Yeah.
Bluey is connecting with not just parents, but people who don't even have kids. Because it does actually have a lot there for the adults as well. So who knows? Maybe they do try to do something like that. Adventure Time has always pushed boundaries. So then we're going to talk about Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Yes, which we actually talked about recently, I think, on the show. I think it was before we started doing them on YouTube, but we did do Foster's.
Yes. So I've said before, our first 23 episodes of this show were audio only, so you can find those by searching for Jester Bros Cartoon Travelers wherever you listen to your podcasts. Especially if you are interested in hearing about Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. This is one of our childhood favorites, and we've even talked about how if a show could work for a reboot, this one has a lot of potential.
Yeah, but I was hoping it wasn't going to be aimed towards kids.
Not preschoolers anyway. Like, you were hoping that it would be an audience that sort of hits that TVY7 of kids watch it, but adults can enjoy it too, and there's a lot there for everybody.
I mean, if it was straight up for teens or adults, I would have been more than satisfied. Here's the thing, right? To be fair, you need to go one way or the other. Like, you need to grow with your audience, or you need to cut it back down like Ben 10 did and make a new series for young kids for them to get excited about it. Scooby Doo is really good at doing that too. You know, Scooby Doo had Mystery Incorporated, which grew with its audience. You know what I mean? Those were teens and adults that were like, this is really good. But then it also had like a pup named Scooby Doo or like some other things that are more young geared. You know what I mean?
Sure. We'll talk about Scooby Doo in a second.
Yeah, that's right. But so this is going the youth route, and like, it looks like it's got an animation style that reminds me of The Amazing World of Gumball. I think I saw something about one of the writers from that being on this team actually. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's for preschool kids. I'm not gonna watch it. You know.
One thing that's interesting to me, this concept art that we're getting, Blue looks differently than he did in the original series, and there are Gumball vibes to it in terms of the different animation styles that seem to be being played with. That works to me for the Foster's universe. It's something that they didn't try, and it's stark because we're used to seeing it one way. But imaginary things should have different layers of animation in them. Like, I honestly think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, for me, the reason that this to me is a concept that just works. The potential for like adult commentary is really there for me for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that they do still have some kind of commentary and it doesn't just end up again like a simple point and click adventure where, you know, kids just have a good time and there's no depth to it.
Sure.
You know, but whatever. It exists.
So I wanted to illustrate these two examples of franchises that we know and love being adapted for the preschool audience. And again, I think that that opens up the door for that audience to grow up, and then maybe we get more Fosters. And Fosters could potentially be as great of a show as we thought it could be, and it was already good.
But if you didn't leave already and you're interested in cartoons that are for not preschool kids, I promise we are still going to talk about those in much more depth.
So let's talk about another reboot, and that is Go Go Mystery Machine, a new Scooby Doo franchise. And in some ways, I'm less interested in this specific concept than I am the fact that Scooby Doo continues to get rebooted again and again successfully, somehow.
Yeah.
So what are they doing right that some of these other franchises are missing?
Before you say successfully, let's not forget that there have been some Velmas out there every once in a while.
Quite a few duds through the Scooby-Doo history, that's true.
It's been very hit and miss. They definitely have enough money to keep giving it a shot, though, so even the misses haven't been that bad. I mean, I think that's like one of the things that we were just talking about. Like, it's been able to survive by introducing decent enough kids content that's spammed enough on the, you know, streaming platforms or TV or whatever, where a lot of kids see it and can grow up with fond memories of it. I mean, I'll still just throw on old Scooby Doo episodes in the background because it's nice nostalgia sounds for me while I'm working. When it comes to this, you know, as far as bringing back an IP, which I tend to dislike, at least they're going a cool route with it. You know what I mean? There have been anime adaptations of like Lilo and Stitch and other shows that I'm probably forgetting that have been pretty decent.
Yes, Scooby-Doo has consistently hit or miss badly whenever they try to totally reinvent their concept.
Yeah, and I feel like when it comes to anime too, usually you're allowed to go a little bit darker, more intense, more fantasy. And I'm hoping that Scooby-Doo takes that route because that's one of the things I loved about Mystery Incorporated was how, you know, much darker, more serious, more mature it was. So hopefully this isn't just like a super kiddie down version, like Hello Kitty as a weird anime or as a weird like Scooby-Doo anime. I mean, but you know, we'll see.
It does seem, and it even says they are going for an anime route. It's designed with that in mind. And we clearly have new characters that are not Fred, Velma, and Daphne. So we're completely reinventing even who is part of Mystery Inc.
And before anyone says that's not a good idea, y'all don't remember when Shaggy wore red.
Man, never forget.
Never
That's
forget.
all I have to say.
There were some good Shaggy and Red Scooby-Doo things. I'm just saying. They were good.
Yeah, no, I'm open to this idea. I'm curious to see what they do with it. So yeah, just wanted to share some concept art of a couple of those things. And I would say that while those are headliners, we also have a continuation of a story, like you mentioned, potentially two, where
there's a couple
adventure...
there's a couple that I want to talk about after this too that they weren't like announced. We know they're coming, but I still want to talk about them.
Okay, great. I can't tell if this is, perhaps it's another reboot. Regular show, all we know is that it's getting a project. It's a new regular show series. Could be a sequel, could be a reboot. We really don't know much at this hour, other than regular show is coming back in some capacity.
Yeah. I will say I liked regular show, but I didn't like get into it the way I got into Adventure Time. It wasn't like a top favorite of mine. I think it's really fun. I think it explores a lot of interesting concepts, had great animation, was very trippy, which I'm into. And you know, this is with someone who didn't really stick too closely to the overarching story. I can't say I wouldn't be a little interested in them going further with this show. I mean, I don't know if you know the original premise, but the original premise of the show is that like these two characters were like drug addicts and were like really into like stoner culture and psychedelics and stuff like that. And then obviously it was purchased by Cartoon Network and they reworked it for more of a kid audience. But you know,
And it still pushed the envelope for the younger audience.
yeah, and I mean, I love that. I would love to see them go. I want to see creators who are into that kind of stuff have to get creative with how they depict it because they can't just go all out with it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it almost made a more interesting show because they couldn't just be like, oh, our characters are high on acid. You know, it's like, no, you need to actually like have creative challenges and try to artistically depict like strange phenomenon in psychology and stuff like that. And if anything, it makes a more interesting product. So I'm curious. Again, I usually assume the worst of any reboot just to be safe, and I'm usually right, but I'd love to be wrong.
So the regular show one is interesting to me. And if any of you have never heard of regular show, it is kind of what it sounds like. There is a raccoon, Rigby, and a Blue Jay, Mordecai. Okay, maybe that was not what you expected me to say.
Yeah, I mean,
But
the tagline back in the day was regular show. It's anything but.
yeah, and at the end of the day, they're just kind of hanging out in a house with a couple of kooky characters having strange adventures.
Yeah, they just work a 9 to 5 job. It is pretty funny.
Yeah, and they make sure that it stays interesting, obviously. The audience for this are adults now.
Yeah.
So if I had to totally blindly speculate, my guess might be that they try to make the adult concept that was never realized. I could be totally wrong.
I'd love that. I don't think Cartoon Network would allow it.
Well, okay, actually, I must take this back because there is a specification that this is still the TVY7 kids genre. Okay. So it looks like they are not taking it to that adult level. So I apologize for getting anybody excited if you were excited about that.
I was excited, so thank you.
Yeah. That would not be my genre. I actually tend to prefer the stuff that is more like for families, all ages. That's just my preference.
Boo, challenge culture.
Regular show was not actually a series that I really watched a bunch when it was out.
Yeah.
The fact that it's coming back, unfortunately, it doesn't like get me excited, but I hope that if you love that show, you're excited. And I also hope that they are able to have more continuity with it and have it be a little bit less formulaic this time around. I think that would be good.
Yeah, that's the part that I would be excited about, regardless of who the audience is for. If they're able to create like an interesting, you know, consistent story with emotional development, changes, love, loss, all of those things.
There you go.
I'd be into that.
And then we also have some more Adventure Time news that they are working on a movie, which is just Jake and Finn embark on their greatest adventure yet. That's all we know.
Oh, really? Okay, wait, hold on. That actually might be kind of fire.
Rebecca Sugar's involved, who I believe is the Steven Universe creator, so that could be good.
Yeah, she did a lot of fantastic music for this series, too.
Sure, and then there is a show called Adventure Time Side Quests, which, who knows, maybe this is just a way to expand the universe with outside the box, outside the main story, things that go on in the Adventure Time world.
Look, if you can keep it good, I won't be mad. Like, Fiona and Cake was good. It wasn't my favorite thing, I'll be honest. It was okay. I wasn't excited for Distant Lands, and the Finn and Jake Distant Lands episode is actually, like, my favorite thing I've ever seen in animation. I truly love it so much. I really do.
Yeah, so I guess the purpose of this one is to have the audience reconnect with standout side characters. So you might see some of those get fleshed out more. Maybe it'll end up being something that you like.
Maybe. It all depends on if they decide to, I don't know. My qualms with Fiona and Cake was just that it seemed to me a little rushed and like the I don't want to spoil anything, but the ending, in my opinion, kind of doesn't make sense for the moral that they were trying to deliver. I can't go more into it because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it here. And I'd say go watch the reactions that I did of it, but I didn't really get to explain myself there either. So, you know, whatever. I don't know. My fear is just that it'll get worse. You know what I mean? Like, I just worry that, you know, because I love Adventure Time so much. It's something that I'm super passionate about. Like, I have a snail tattoo on my butt. I really think that if they decided to crash the ship, I would just be really disappointed. Like, don't get me wrong, I know there are people that are fans of Teen Titans Go, But if I was like a diehard Teen Titans fan, I would have hated Teen Titans Go with such a passion. You know what I mean?
You know what's interesting? The existence of Teen Titans Go wouldn't offend me, even if I was a super fan, because it's its own thing. I know people get like really connected to the thing that they love and they want more. I was upset when Total Drama had a baby show. I was.
There you go. There's the example. So you would have
But-
been upset.
Well, it was because the audience, at least the fandom at the time, was kind of led to believe that something new was coming from Total Drama. So there was hype around what is it going to be, and then it was that. If they had just flat out announced it and I'd never known, I guess maybe the frustration is I wish that I could be getting more Teen Titans instead, for example. And I get that. I do. But the existence of it, I think, isn't offensive. It doesn't take away from the source material.
All right. Philosophy of art time, people. I disagree. So,
Okay.
like, some people, like, so I've heard some people say that, like, I could still watch the original Star Wars movies and feel like they're fun.
That's me.
Can't. I literally cannot. Like, you know, and some people be like, oh, you're just letting it ruin it for you. It's like, I'm not letting anything. This is just how I feel. I'm not invested. I don't care. You know what I mean? I see Star Wars now and I think, Disney's making lots of money off of this. And I see, even when I go back into the old Star Wars movies, I'll be like, yes, they've redone this several times now. Like, I mean, part of it is just humanity killed it because we overdid it. You know, it's like when a song is overplayed. Do you really still like the song when it's overplayed to death, even if you originally liked it? No, you don't. And there's a reason for that. You know what I mean? It's because it's not original anymore.
Sure, but it's different if the song is rebooted in a different form and you're getting exposed with variations of the song versus the original song itself. But I do understand what you mean.
Considering episode 7, I think you'd be pretty considerate saying that that's not practically just the same movie as episode 4 all over again.
Well, and I think that's why episode 7 was very well received and then the following ones were not.
I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't even care about Star Wars anymore. You know, I've heard that like The Mandalorian is good. I've heard that there's another Star Wars thing that's good. I liked the animated Star Wars. But you guys don't understand. I got so into you remember I was really into Star Wars.
You were.
I learned so much about the lore. I read books. Like I was really into it. And then Disney's like, by the way, all of that stuff that you spent like time learning about and researching, none of it's canon anymore. We're taking it this way. And I'm like, all right, I'm definitely not going to waste my time getting involved in this again.
Sure. Warner Bros, I feel like made the biggest splash in terms of new news that made headlines and people were like, oh, I'm interested in that. Like, I guess we're getting a Blue Beetle animated series. Some people like that character.
I like that character. I remember him from Batman Brave and the Bold when I was growing up, and I thought that was cool.
Sure, there's going to be a Watchmen animated movie that I think maybe some people used to like Watchmen before the movie came out and then nobody liked it anymore.
You know, the superhero thing is something that I think is also like a song that's been played too much lately.
I get that.
I think that even like I think that there's because superhero stuff like X-Men, you know, just there's so much of it, right? And because of that, you could tell an infinite amount of interesting stories that are really good with it. So it shouldn't feel like we've gotten too much of it because you can do so much with it. But it still kind of does. Well, I don't know. I love Invincible. And that's one of the things I actually wanted to talk about is that there is going to be an Invincible season 2. We already know that. But that's one of the things I'm the most excited about because I think Invincible is an incredible story. And it is superhero related. So I guess now is a good time to bring it up.
There's already a season 2, right? So it's probably getting a season 3.
I meant season 3. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
That's what I meant. Yeah. I loved season 2. A lot of people didn't like the release order because we're a bunch of content junkies now. I mean, granted, the break that they had was confusing. I don't know why you would give it that much time. The creator was quoted saying, like, we needed to give people time to, like, you know, like, soak it in. I think that's silly. I think that you underestimate how quick people are to soak something in that you create. You know, this is the modern day of the internet. People are onto the next thing in 15 minutes. So, I mean, they didn't need to do that. But, I mean, if I'm comparing Invincible to, like, most other superhero stuff that's been created and going on, I think Invincible is like S tier. Like I put it up there with like the Spider-Man movies, the animated ones.
Sure. Well, and for what it's worth, I loved the new X-Men animated series
Oh yeah, yeah,
reboot
yeah.
that they did. I thought it was really fantastic. As somebody who really loves the 80s version, they did what I hoped, which was take an 80s show, like I said with
Yep,
DuckTales,
yep,
revamped it for the modern audience, made it very
yep.
continuous. The original already kind of was. And they slayed it. Honestly, I
Yeah.
thought it was really, really fantastic.
So see everyone, it's just Marvel that we're sick of. It's not all superheroes. Animation's actually doing great with superhero stuff right now.
X-Men is Marvel, my friend. I hate to tell you.
Yeah, but not really. You know what I mean. I mean, like, and I know they're part of the MCU, but the X-Men movies are their own thing.
Okay, I see what you mean. And actually, the new X-Men series is not canonically part of the MCU. It exists in its own universe.
There you go. And we have
So
Deadpool. Deadpool's funny. That's gonna be funny. As long as it
yes,
didn't get
now
too Disney-fied.
yeah, now X-Men will be coming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe soon in an official form. And it kind of already has been teased,
Yeah.
but anyway, just to specify that.
I will
Now,
tell everybody who's curious, since we're on it, the X-Men was my favorite personal like superhero thing that went on. Because I loved the commentary about mutants and how they're treated in society. I thought that that was a great way to go the superhero route. I thought it was really interesting. It made like the superhero formula like fresh and new and in tackling something a little bit more up my alley with the commentary
mhm.
element. And it seems a little nerdier to me. I don't even know why. I know it's all superhero stuff, but there's something about like so many different mutants and how their society functions. Like I'm into it. I like X-Men.
Great. Okay, well, we've spent a lot of time talking about readaptions of things that we already know and love. And I kind of want to move forward into fresh ideas, fresh concepts,
Yeah.
because they are still happening. They're just happening a hell of a lot less than they used to.
I mean, I don't think that's true. I think that it's just, yeah, you know, if you're a company, you're going to advertise the thing that you know is going to make you money. Because if we look at, I mean, I just, you know, mentioned Invincible. That's a new thing, and that's killing it right now. Vox Machina is going to be getting more stuff pretty soon. I don't know the dates on it, but that's really exciting for all of you Dungeons and Dragons or Amazon Prime animated show fans. Amazon Prime has been killing it with animation. We also have Hell of a Boss. You know, we don't know when season or not Hell of a Boss, Has Been Hotel. We don't know when season 2 of that's coming yet, but that's going to be on its way eventually, and that's really exciting. Hell of a Boss has the rest of its season 2 that's going to be coming out over the next couple months. And all of that's new. And we have the Amazing Digital Circus, which is new too, and that exploded on the internet.
Yeah, but I'm going to say that Amazon Prime's biggest successes are still capitalizing off of properties that sort of exist in some way, right?
I mean, Hell of a Boss was, or Has Been Hotel was an original pilot.
It was, but it came from YouTube first. They bought it after it had already been successful. They
Well,
banked
that's what all
on
companies
Legend of
do,
Vox.
though.
Yeah, they banked on Legend of Vox Machina because they knew Critical Role already came with an audience. Now,
Name the
I'm
first
not
10
saying
animated Disney films.
so. Don't get me wrong. Like I know that they're doing a lot of other things. Like Invincible was a fresh concept.
Well, no, that was based
unless
on a comic book series.
Oh, it was. Okay, it was a comic book series first. So Amazon, they're being smart about it, right? And
Well,
I'm not
yeah,
even
but
criticizing it. I'm just saying, like, they are not completely, like, start from scratch ideas. And I think
well,
that's important to
what I'm
say.
trying to say is there's really no such thing as a complete start from scratch idea. I mean, okay, they're kind of are, but like that's why I brought up Disney. Like Lion King, it's Hamlet. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like Snow White, it's Snow White. Like the original Disney movies were all just fairy tales that existed already. You know, they
sure.
didn't have an
So,
original, technically an original idea, but putting it in the animated format changes it. It's not like it's not like it's not like taking a movie that existed already, like Aladdin, that's already an animated movie, and then making it, I guess not technically animated, but just making it a movie again. You know what I mean?
right. Well, I think that animation evolves.
Yeah.
And it evolves in such a way where certain things are inspiring new things, however direct that may be.
Yeah.
And
And
I think that
anime.
that's true.
We've got Free Ren is incredible. That's a new series that's been coming out that I saw. Dungeon Meshi is Meshi. I don't remember how to pronounce it. But Delicious and Dungeon. That's I think both of those are on Netflix. Maybe just the latter is. I don't remember where Free Ren is. I don't watch them on Netflix. But those are both absolutely incredible. They're all on Crunchyroll.
Sure. But anyway, you said that it's a marketing thing why we're not seeing as much of these other shows that are being made. But I will push back on that. I think that there was a point during COVID where streaming services especially were just dumping money into making more content because so many people were watching it.
I mean, I just named like 10 new projects that are all doing really well.
I know you did, except there was a point where we were seeing like tons of animated projects in development. Like you could look at a list and be like, there are 60 things coming out between all these networks. And these streaming services, like their CEOs are coming out and openly saying, we need to narrow our focus and stop dumping, be smarter about our investments, basically. We can't invest money on making like every new thing and hope that something sticks. We're trying to do less.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't pay attention because a lot of them were really not that good.
Sure, but I think that's the point, is that they're trying to only make things that are good and not waste money on something that may not hit. And as a result, we're probably missing out on some really good shows. We're missing out on risk taking because they're maybe doing something that they think is the safest.
I mean, Netflix started doing anime, which is what I mean, or capitalizing more on anime because, you know, that works. A lot anime is, I mean, but again, this is the thing, right? We can't judge what's good or popular based on streaming services because these corporations really have no idea what's going on. You know what I mean? These like, you know, these overarching businessmen are looking at anime and being like, so they like elven tits, I think. Maybe we'll do one with that as the premise. And, you know, the creators are sitting there like, we can't, no, Netflix, that's not how that works. You know, so I think that, you know, I mean, Netflix historically makes bad decisions when it comes to animated properties. And I think that, like, the reason that I say it's marketing isn't because we only hear about them. I'm saying that's just what they advertise ahead of time because they need to see something get good before they're going to put money behind advertising it.
Yes, which is complicated because something needs advertising to be able to succeed a lot of the time.
I mean, look at all of the successful indie animated shows. It's just got advertisement because it was good and people wanted to watch it and share it with each other.
Yeah, I mean, word of mouth didn't. I want to say it didn't help Centaur World. I guess it did. It did help Centaur World. Yeah. And Centaur World was never supposed to go longer than it did, but it was a series that came and went so fast and never developed a fandom. I take that back.
Yeah.
Definitely developed a fandom.
Oh, it did.
But the fandom didn't have an opportunity to really stick around long because everything was out and gone so fast.
But that was Netflix's problem. They just didn't realize when they had something good. And I mean, if we're talking about the landscape of animation, legally there are a lot of really stupid things going on right now with animation. Like Centaur World, for example. Let's say the creators wanted to keep making the show. Too bad it was bought. You don't own the rights to it anymore. You can't keep creating this story and make it for the people who love it, unless Netflix wants to.
That's not just animation, but yeah, that's an unfortunate reality of the artistic medium.
Yeah, and I think that that's really terrible and limiting for creative growth. Like, you know, sure, like if the creators of Centaur World wanted to take that IP and run with it and create a new series, they should be able to with somebody else, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that would be way better for content. And if that threatens the original company, then maybe you shouldn't have canceled the show.
Oh, look at that. Listen to some logic out here. This my boy is spitting.
Now, granted, Centaur World was always bought and intended to be a 2-season series that came and ended, which I respect.
Yeah,
Gravity Falls did that too.
Sure,
you know, it's great. But Dead End Paranormal Park, gone sooner than it should have been. I would hope that another company would have taken a chance on Dead End had it survived. You know, if you've all been watching our YouTube channel for a while, you know how we feel about Dead End. We love the show. But I do think that it's interesting that Dead End kind of came at a time where we were getting announcements, and Centaur World too, about all of these animated shows that I don't think these streaming services would be taking a chance on now because they're trying to narrow their focus. They're doing a lot more with pre-existing properties, and then once in a while they're taking a flyer on something that they hope becomes its own successful property down the road. And I find that a little bit sad because I like seeing a lot of the animation history that comes behind the misses. I look at shows like Mike, Lou, and Og from our Cartoon Network days. Does anybody remember that show outside of the people who were there?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't get talked about, but there's also something fun and nostalgic about the fact that that show existed, and we're not going to get anything like that probably ever again.
I talk about Chalk Zone every once in a while, and almost nobody knows what I'm talking about. I'm like, I thought that show was so good, and I don't know why I had the perception that people loved it at the time. But I'm like, dude, Chalk Zone was like such an interesting and creative idea. I cannot believe that more people don't love it. And yeah, there are a lot of like the Cuphead show. That was great.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not. I mean, when I say great, I mean like relative. It wasn't one of my favorite things that ever came out, but it was a really fun, well animated, interesting show. Based on the Cuphead video game. And anybody who saw it, who was growing up with it, is probably going to have a soft nostalgia spot in their heart for both the game and the show. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, I want to talk a second about the evolution of animation and where we think we're headed. Because when animation emerged in those early Disney eras and Snow White came out in 1937, it was not so commonly stereotyped as a for kids medium. That narrative developed a little bit more as we saw, kids really like watching this stuff. This is a perfect opportunity to advertise to kids.
Yeah.
And as...
Oh, God. That shouldn't even be legal.
Sure, I know. And we all grew up, and I think Hanna-Barbera had a big renaissance where Scooby Doo, the Flintstones, the Jetsons, all of these syndicated cartoons, the Saturday morning thing, became very popular. Kids would watch it on TV. They would buy the cereals. And you get to the 80s where stuff like DuckTales exists, and there's just big chunks of seasons being ordered at a time. It's all formulaic. There's no long-running storylines. And eventually you get to the 90s where the shows maybe get a little bit better. They also get edgier, and things start to challenge the norms a little bit more. And then
you're forgetting about the whole timeline that's happening across the pond, where we see Astro Boy show up in the early 50s or 60s, whatever time it was.
Great point.
And then we start to see things like Akira. Like Akira gets made in the 80s, and that changes so much about animation because that had some of the most intricate color design that we'd ever seen in an animated property anywhere in the world. We start getting shonen that start getting popular and changing the landscape in Japan a little bit. We get the mech anime thing that started happening, which inspired Transformers in the West. There's that whole timeline, and then it feels like in the 2000s is when they started really colliding. We had some collision with like Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack, Teen Titans had a little bit, but now, anime in the, Western audiences are like holding hands and skipping through, rainbows and flowers now.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to say that in the 2000s, you do start to see Studio Ghibli emerge, which I think it was already kind of there, but Miyazaki movies are really capturing the imagination of people in the West. Yeah. Things are starting to change in that way. And I am definitely narrowing this down in scope. There's so much more to it. Oh, totally. I guarantee you, lots of countries are making animated properties that are influencing each other in different ways. We're kind of thinking East and West pretty narrowly.
Yeah. I mean, those are just because those are the ones that hit the biggest numbers. You know what I mean?
Right. And then as Lucas and I were growing up, I think partially because of this anime influence, we got really into Pokemon and Digimon.
Yeah.
Some of the shows, we got into some formulaic ones that were just rinse repeat episodes like the 80s, but then you start to see Ben 10s and Avatar The Last Airbender. It's a continuously running show.
Avatar The Last Airbender changed everything, because because don't get me wrong, people, there were good series that had running plot lines like Samurai Jack, but Avatar The Last Airbender showed corporations that we could have animated projects that are very mature and also for kids, but also still tell really complex stories with, long-term character development and stuff like that. And a lot of, like, Nickelodeon didn't know if that was actually possible at the time. They didn't know if audiences would actually stick with Avatar for a whole journey and would care about characters going through something that long. And then before you know it, you've got things like Adventure Time and, go even further into time and we get, we grab Gravity Falls, Owl House, Netflix, Steven Universe. Yeah, we're getting like really complex stories that are really challenging what can be done in animation and what kinds of things people are looking for in animation, what audiences can expect. And then we have the streaming service era, which, kind of takes a step in another weird direction.
I think that that's a pivot point, and I think it sort of starts to inform where we're at. I am going to revoke something that I said a long time ago, like right when we started our show.
Yeah.
This is a few years ago now. We've really been doing this a while. I looked at the slate of upcoming animation, and I saw Netflix and Prime and even Disney seeming to start taking these big swings on a ton of different animated projects. There was so much in development.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, streaming is changing the way that we are able to make shows. So instead of having everything on network TV, we're getting just tons of great content. And I thought streaming is helping animation in that way. And I have changed my mind because it seems now like the Owl House was the end of an era in that we were getting these weekly episodes and the fandom was building around Owl House. I feel like the shows that come out so quickly, they pale in comparison to that.
I agree.
And
I agree.
I don't know. There's definitely some animated shows that are getting one episode at a week releases or something similar to it, and that's helping the fandom. Yeah. But a lot of the time, these are now adult animated shows. And I think that this is another big pivot point where animation is becoming something that is being made for adults more often. And I think the investments being made into really serious long-running shows that get these weekly releases is for a higher level audience. And I am a little disappointed by that, if I can say so.
You know what I was going to say? Because the reason that that's happening is because anime is blowing Western cartoons out of the water because they go a more mature route. Like, that is so why all of these corporations are taking these risks, is because, like, things like One Piece and, like, Attack on Titan, they are doing so well globally because people want to see mature stories told. We are, we are grown-ass adults. Even when you're 18, you want to, even when you're 16, you want to say, I'm a grown-ass adult. People crave things that are challenge them. We don't want easy stuff. We want things that are pushing the envelope, both in terms of the technology of the art and in terms of our own philosophy, our own religions, our own morals, compasses. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see characters wrestle with the struggles of how it feels to exist in such a crazy world. And like, and I think so many people want to see that and feel like we were spoon-fed such mindless cartoons in the 80s and 90s. You know what I mean? Like, Ren and Stimpy is junk food. You know what I mean? That is like literally eating cake for dinner, but it doesn't even taste that good. It's just interesting.
It's just different. I agree actually with everything that you said. And I want to clarify that I am not mad that this stuff is here. I think it is incredible that we are finally at a point where we are understanding that animation is for everybody and not just for kids. Yeah. We've turned the corner, right? We've realized that this is not, this is not a genre that needs to be alienated to a certain age group. That's great. However, I love that Avatar: The Last Airbender exists for all ages. I love that kids are also able to get great series that have continuity. And what I'm afraid of is that shows like Owl House are not going to happen anymore for kids. We're seeing a lot of the cartoons that are very popular. Disney keeps investing into Big City Greens. And I'm not going to I know people like that show too.
Yeah.
But Big City Greens isn't Owl House.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we are still seeing things like Avatar: The Last Airbender that are appropriate for all ages. Like, mature themes absolutely have a place in family entertainment. Yeah. It does not have to be, again, we don't have to dumb things down for kids. I don't want to see that either.
All right, so here's a comment call out I want for people watching the episode right now.
Yeah.
I think this brings up a good point, is at what age are kids ready for things like, I don't know, like, what's a really popular anime that's come out? I was going to say Attack on Titan, but that's definitely a more violent example that I'm not really
I mean,
trying.
Demon Slayer is another violent example, but it's also very popular.
Okay, yeah, let's go with Demon Slayer. I haven't seen too much of Demon Slayer to actually have a great sphere, but I don't think it's that it's still cartoony violence, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's pretty serious. You could try. What about something like Full Metal Alchemist?
Yeah, I mean, that's got fighting and stuff. People get stabbed. Like, there's
Mhm.
blood. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's not like, well, actually, Full Metal Alchemist has one of the most psychologically fucked up things I've ever seen.
Well, let me just say, there's
The
a
kids
lot
can
of
handle
anime.
a lot of that. That's what I'm saying.
There's
Like, if you
Okay.
had a 10-year-old, I think 10 years old is fine for Full Metal Alchemist. I think you'd get
Okay.
into that series. I don't think.
So-
I mean, your average 6-year-old is going to see way more scarring things on the news than they will ever see in an anime.
Well, and I also want to mention that anime still is in waves. Like, Attack on Titan is more violent than Hunter x Hunter,
Yeah.
despite the fact that that show, the concept of it is relatively brutal. It's still more cartoony than Attack on Titan is.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's-
In terms of its vibe, yeah. Hunter x Hunter. Yeah, I think Hunter x Hunter is actually a great example of a middle ground. I would let my kid watch Hunter x Hunter for sure.
Sure. So anyway, I guess all of that's to say, as we proceed into the future, I love that the anime influence is there. I really want these shows that feel very accessible for everybody, that can develop a fandom around them. I want to see another Steven Universe. I want to see another Gravity Falls, another Last
But
Airbender.
that's kind of what I mean. Like, are we changing what is actually for everybody? Because that's not really a specific thing. You know what I mean? Like, is Full Metal Alchemist for everybody? Is it okay to see? Is it okay for kids to see cartoon stabbing? You know, it sounds like a silly question, but we really need to ask these questions, right?
They're worth asking, and honestly, I think that it's complicated, and it's a hard question to answer because I think there's probably actual psychological research on this that could help that
Sure.
I am not informed enough to be able to properly share.
Sure. Well, I mean, here's one thing, right? Parents used to say that, like, oh, kids shouldn't play Call of Duty because it'll make them violent. I think that's clearly not true now. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, if you know, and Call of Duty is literally you're holding a controller in first person blowing someone's head off. So I think that if it's in a story context, it's probably even more removed from the idea of you learning violence out of seeing it. You know what I mean? I think other factors
yeah.
will teach you more.
Proving those concepts though is very complicated in social science, so again, it's a complicated issue.
But that's why we're here, to talk
That is
about
why
it
to speculate about it
without
for
any
sure.
information or scientific reasoning, because that's what most people have to go on.
And allegedly, Last Airbender is getting additions. Like, we're getting TV movies, and we're perhaps going to get more series. I just started watching Legend of Korra. This is news to you.
Ooh,
Finally.
You should come in for a Legend of Korra video sometime for the channel.
Yeah, I'm loving it so far. That's
Good.
what I have to say. And
Are
I'm
you
excited that
Season 1 so far?
just halfway through season 1.
Halfway through
so
season
still
1, nice.
very
Okay.
new.
Okay, just based on the tone of that's more mature in an intensity violent sense than I felt like Avatar The Last Airbender was. Would you agree?
Yes, but that's the kind of show that I feel like I'm looking for. That would be my hopes. And I don't mean to project all of my personal wishes on where the state of animation is going.
No, sure.
Um,
But do you think that's something that's as for kids as Avatar?
Probably. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that the tone is similar. Mhm.
I think that it might be more serious, which might make some kids like it less than others, but I still think that it could be for kids.
Well, I'll be honest. Avatar's original series, I bet that there's a lot of kids that are so used to some of the high energy, fast paced things that are out there
Yeah.
that they don't even have the patience to watch Avatar or get anything out of it.
I hope that's not true.
Well, I'm not saying it's everybody. But like there is a lot of things, especially on YouTube, that are trying to grab kids' attention and move everything faster.
Yeah.
So
YouTube Shorts was such a terrible addition to YouTube.
love you, YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. Hi, YouTube. Don't please recommend our video. Hit the like button, everybody watching this, so that YouTube still likes us.
But anyway, the reason I wanted to talk about all that There are a couple shows coming out. Warner Bros. Announced something called Bad Karma, which is a family cartoon.
Okay.
And it's an exciting and epic tale about courage, loyalty, and an unlikely friendship between a young demon princess, Chandra, and the legendary demigod Veer, set in a dark mythological world of magic and fantasy.
All right, that's a good pitch.
Yeah, it's not bad. We watched Unicorn Warriors Eternal from Gennady Tartakovsky, and that is another show. Technically, it's towing the line, but it's kind of that last Airbender age group, probably.
Yeah.
Where it's still pretty appropriate, but there's some intense themes.
Did that get canceled?
I think it may have gotten renewed for another season, but it has not come yet.
Dude, I gotta catch up on that because I loved the hell out of that first episode.
Me too. It was stunning. It was so good. And that's one that came from a big name, and I still felt like it did not get talked about nearly as much as I would have expected. I thought that could have developed a fan base.
Yeah.
It came out on Adult Swim and HBO Max, and I think Adult Swim is not always like the most viewed area, though a lot of things have been popular. Speaking of which, Adult Swim announced some brand new concepts. They do that all the time, though.
God, have you seen that like Smiling Friends show?
Yeah. Well,
Dude,
I know what it is. I haven't seen it.
I didn't even know about it, and then all of a sudden it just started blowing up in my like all of my different like YouTube and Instagram feeds out of nowhere. That apparently like some of the adult animated shows are actually making some waves too. Like outside of Has-Been Hotel. I mean like the sitcom-y, Adult Swim style.
The stuff that used to be adult animation, which is now shifting to be more mature.
I mean, like, obviously, guys, we know that The Simpsons and Family Guy and American Dad technically are still running, but we call them dead shows because they shouldn't be running anymore.
Yeah, they're able to just keep spitting out content, and people will still watch it, not to follow along just because it makes them laugh. But and that's fine.
Smiling Friends is apparently really popular right now. I saw they had a live stream going on YouTube, and I watched a couple episodes, and it did what Adult Swim used to do for me. I pulled it up, and I'm like, what in the actual flying fuck am I watching? And that's what I liked about Adult Swim. It was like weird, shocking, just strange content that you would see at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right. Adult Swim is just middle of the night Cartoon Network, and they will still take stabs at random shows, random animation, pretty low budget a lot of the time.
Hey, I loved Super Jail. I don't care what anybody says.
It never excites me when I hear about an Adult Swim show. The Unicorn Warriors Eternal, it was cool to me that ended up there because it showed me it's not just like benign stuff in the middle of the night. Like they're willing to put some real actual quality shows on there too. So who knows? Maybe one of those will hit. The one that I'm the most interested about is actually a Disney show, because Disney has decided to be so much more careful about what they're releasing, and we are seeing like Phineas and Ferb is getting another season. Big City Greens renewed again. We're Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, Marvel show that apparently was quite good.
Yeah,
it's getting more. And then we get, your pre-K announcements. But then there's something called The Doomies. And this is a chilling series which follows best friends Bobby and Romy, who mistakenly open a gateway to the underworld and turn their sleepy coastal town into a hotspot for terrifying creatures of doom. As they try to cover up their mess, they get roped into an epic monster mystery, which will see them both battle literal and inner demons.
Okay, so here's my thing. Remember the Ghost and Molly McGee?
Yes, I know. People like this show, but I know what you're going to say.
It should have been harder than it was. It was too soft. You know what I mean?
We were hoping for it to go a little bit harder out of the gate.
And I have I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to say what my expectation and prediction is for Disney in the future, since they are undoubtedly, a dinosaur of animation culture, right? Mm-hmm. Disney's been in a little bit of a rough patch, obviously. Their animated shows and even a lot of their non-animated property and movies and a lot of their non-animated stuff has been not very well received in the last 2 years. However, Disney has gone through dark ages before.
Yes.
And usually once that happens, they do learn from it and fix it eventually.
Yeah.
They're not going away anytime soon. They're not gonna, they're not gonna tank the parks. The parks are always gonna be sick, let's be honest. They're still making tons of money and they're still going to push the envelope in some way eventually when it comes to animated stuff. I think Inside Out 2, even though I'm pretty sure it came out like very recently, like maybe today or yesterday or something like that within the week. I have a feeling that's going to be really good. I could be wrong. I'm just guessing.
I've got a gut feeling that it's going to end up being pretty good too.
Yeah.
And anytime we get that spooky thing, I get excited. I still think A Ghost and Molly McGee was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I think that Owl House was a masterpiece. Gravity Falls was a masterpiece. I would love to see them accomplish something like that again. I will share the initial concept art because
Sure.
it doesn't get me excited that it's going to be a series like this. However, the first time I saw Steven Universe's concept art, it also didn't do anything for me. So I believe stronger in the concept than the animation style. Okay.
It looks cool.
Yeah, I think this might be good.
So here's the thing. Here's my I think Disney, in order for them to break the mold and find themselves really doing amazing stuff again, and I don't know if they will do this, but I think that if they decided to make a show that was more along the tone of like Unicorn Warriors Eternal, or a movie, or like Black Cauldron, or like something more intense, or like Shrek, even if they went a comedy route, I think they need to show the world that they are willing to break out of what Disney is. You know what I mean?
I think that's a great point, and I think they could knock it out of the park. They have all the right people for it.
Absolutely.
And
I mean,
animators who want to do this stuff. They want to push the envelope. Alex Hirsch literally bent over backwards to try to make sure that Gravity Falls got made the best way. And then Dana Terrace did the same for Owl House.
And so, I mean, think about what our conversation, so much of it today, it's so funny we started with the pre-K stuff because we ended up getting more and more mature in our conversation.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where animation is. I think people are wanting more mature stuff with complex storytelling and characters. And I think that's why people have been disappointed in things like Wish, or what other things are people disappointed about in Disney? I haven't been paying attention.
Strange World, which I didn't see, so I don't want to critique.
Sure.
I think people still liked it. But
some of the Marvel movies even recently have been tanking a little bit.
Very much.
And I think it's because people are tired of Disney playing it safe. And they've been able to, play the family. And don't get me wrong, they will always have a family-friendly audience. But guys, we're getting a Disney Deadpool. They don't need to cling to that identity anymore. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, they are in a position where they can actually make something that's, like, challenging and a little even maybe scary for kids. And yeah, I think that it would do them really well. Like, Puss in Boots 2 was the greatest animated film that came out of like DreamWorks, Disney, like any of our Western audience studios, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's by far, like, so good. You know what I mean? I think that the only thing that came closest in a similar time span was Soul. And because it did kind of a similar thing. And when they did Soul, so much of the praise of it is, wow, I can't believe Disney is telling such a heavy story. That's something that we love. We want to see that. You know what I mean?
And some of the criticism, too. This isn't for kids.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes good movies. That's what we want to see, the challenges, Disney. Disney, you're not listening to this. And even if somebody who works in Disney was, I'm sure they wouldn't be able to do anything about it. But for the audience who is watching, I think that we want to see artists take chances and tell stories about risky things. Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotel are pushing the boundaries of social commentary. I mean, it's a show that's taking itself very seriously, that's literally taking place as a redemption arc in hell. Like, that's such an interesting concept, and there's so much commentary going in with, like, can you be a heavenly being that does drugs and has lots of sex? Is that actually on the table for you? People don't like talking about that for some reason, and that's what I want to see in my cartoons, is I want challenges. And I think if Disney keeps playing it safe, they're going to keep hitting duds, and they're going to need to try to make some challenges somehow, that not just challenging animation, but challenging audience expectations.
Yeah, I think that was really well said. And, I know that not everybody's a fan of Disney, but whether they are doing well or whether they're not, a lot of the time the animation world does react to them.
Totally.
And same thing with their theme parks. Universal always knows what Disney's doing. They have to, because Disney has the money and the tools to make a lot of the best things if they are willing to do so.
Yeah.
And we have seen incredible things. There's even some talks that maybe they've been trying to get Alex Hirsch to come back for some more Gravity Falls.
Alex Hirsch, like ignoring all of their texts, like, God damn it, stop texting me. I don't want this, but we'll give you money. They'll give me money.
Think about, I heard that there's a new Gravity Falls book around Bill Cipher coming out soon, so cool. Everybody check that out.
I'm here for that. Yeah. Let's go.
Created by Alex Hirsch, so he's still in the universe. It's not impossible. But anyway, yeah. Also pay attention to a show called Stugo. I guess it's another new animated series from Disney about a mad scientist. Sounds kind of interesting.
Okay.
A little bit closer to release. But anyway, I think no matter what, Lou and I are advocating for great shows that take the audience seriously for all sorts of different age groups, regardless of what the demographic is.
I agree. And because of that, I want to ask you, Alec, let's pretend we could choose where to live in the grand scheme of animation history to tie it all back in.
Wow, what a great way to close it out.
Is this period in time one that you would want to live in over other periods of time in animation?
Wow.
We can't see into the future, but we have all the past at our fingertips.
You know where I am kind of sitting, I think, is more like the 2008 to 2016 genre, where we got Avatar, Gravity Falls, Steven Universe, and Adventure Time.
Yeah.
I think that style of animation, there was a lot of love in that, and there were big universes being created, also some really good anime.
Yeah.
Maybe even 2000 to 2015 to expand it a little further, because then I still kind of get my my Digimons and stuff. Now, there's a piece of me that would even go back further into the Wonderland, Neverland days of Disney, where just the worlds being built were extremely magical. Yeah, but we still get that now. We just get them more fleshed out.
Yeah. I gotta be honest, I love the modern day. I love it.
Really? You're really excited about where things are headed, even though there's less being made and it's more narrow.
It's because of indie animation. Like, the Amazing Digital Circus is so clever and interesting, and I'm so excited to be in real time seeing where it's going. One Piece is in its final, stages right now, and this is the era where I'm going to get to see that completed, and that is amazing. Lackaday, Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotel are absolute, landmarks in art and culture and are going to be remembered for decades. You know what I mean? Our grandchildren are going to be looking back at Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss. And it's incredible to see that unfolding in real time and being kind of part of it with our channel and stuff ourselves. Lackadaisy, I'm excited about. Invincible, I'm really getting a lot out of. Vox is very creative. So, a lot of it isn't being done by, the major studios that we were known for doing things like this in the past. But they're taking these... Oh, and not to mention the world of anime is so good right now. I mean, there's more anime. Oh, there's just so many good. I could literally spend the rest of my lifetime finding good anime to watch. Haikyuu is getting a movie. That's the volleyball anime. I'm so excited for that. Free Run's really good. There's so many amazing things. I think Mob Psycho 100 is getting more seasons too. It's so many of my favorite anime are still actively going. I think that our era for animation is insane right now. I think the industry standards suck for artists a little bit. Some of the studios that, Jujutsu Kaisen?
Yes.
Dude, they were treated terrible. They did not have, they were given crazy mandates. Being an artist, I wouldn't want to be an animator right now, that's for sure. I would way rather be an animator back in the day. But in terms of an audience member, I'm super stoked with what we're getting right now. I would absolutely land right here.
That is awesome. Let me just also mention, in the period of time that I was talking about, you've also got some really great Ghibli and magical Ghibli places during that time.
True. And we got The Boy and the Heron, though. That's my favorite Ghibli movie now.
And that's new. And then I was also thinking Scooby Doo Mystery Inc., which gave me the Scooby Doo universe that I always dreamed of.
That was pretty great.
So,
and Adventure Time. I loved watching Adventure Time and Avatar as it came out. That's a golden age for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm excited that you're bullish about the way that things are headed. I am cautiously optimistic. I still feel like we're leaning more into pre-existing properties, and we're going to get less new things, but I'm hoping that the new things are better because it's more narrow. That's my best case.
It doesn't feel that way to me, but that's because I mostly watch internet stuff now.
I think it's great that indie animation is rising in the way that it is. And that's something that is unique to this era. That's a great point.
Yeah, I think YouTube has facilitated a lot. I mean, even the era you're talking about, like, it was very YouTube influenced. Do you remember the clay the clay things that we used to Yeah, you do
Those
remember.
were awful. Those were so bad.
But they were like so part of YouTube culture at the time. I don't even remember what they're called, but if you were there, you know what I mean. There was this like old, really stupid humor, like claymation YouTube thing that was done. I think that it ended up playing into a lot of Adult Swim humor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, kinda.
And a lot of that. So I think that it's been interesting to see it all unfold. Like Happy Tree Friends, I feel like is weirdly in that vein too. I don't remember if that was a fully anime or a fully internet show, but I feel like it was. I don't actually remember.
Yeah, I think that just talking about how the scope of animation changes and has shifted over the years has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this discussion.
Yeah, this has been really good. Yeah, and everybody let us know in the comments, what's your favorite period in animation history? Do you prefer now? You like the Adventure Times, the Gravity Falls, the Steven Universes? You go further back? Are you a classic Looney Tunes kind of person? You know what I mean? The Popeyes. When mom and dad were over, I started running a Boomerang live stream from like an old circulating series of shows. And there was a Popeye cartoon that came up, and mom and dad were both like, "Oh, I remember this one," and I had never seen it before.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, and it was really fun to sit there and, we even paused in a couple moments and I'm like, look at the animation they're doing here. And, they were doing some really creative stuff with putting stills on like real, like clay model sets. It was actually something I didn't know they were ever doing back then. So yeah, I love this whole thing. This was a lot of fun.
Nice. Let us know if you like hearing discussions like this that are a little bit more dynamic rather than just talking about where we want to live, which we will still continue doing.
Absolutely.
But we've been excited to try something like this for a while, and I had a lot of fun. So thank you, audience, and thank you, Lou.
Yes, thank you, Alec. And yeah, we're gonna be mixing it up. We're still gonna be doing we are the travelers. We are traveling cartoon universes. But that's the great thing about universes is we have the entire universe at our disposal. So who knows what we'll end up covering?
We can travel a lot of different ways.
Yes, indeed. Play us out with that sound effect, me.